Right. Good afternoon to everybody that's joined so far. My name is Rob Penny from Synertech. I'm the program manager here. With us on the line, we have Frank Werthhammer. He's a senior business partner manager from TTE-Europe. Together, Synertech and TTE are going to be hosting this webinar. We look forward to giving the presentation. Just a little bit of etiquette. I'm going to ask Jared just to explain a little bit in terms of how we'll do recordings, etc. So, Jared, if you'd like to explain.
Okay, thank you, Rob. First of all, thank you to everyone that's attending. Appreciate having you here. We are recording this webinar. We will make the recording available afterwards, both directly to those that registered as well as on our website. The webinar will be approximately 1 hour. Thereafter, we will have a question and answer session. I'm going to ask, please, if you have a question during the webinar, please post it in the chat. Otherwise, hold your question for the end. If for whatever reason you have to leave before we get a chance to answer your question, leave it in the chat and we will make sure to answer all questions we can afterwards directly. That's it. Thank you, Rob.
All right, so I'm sorry, Jared, just go up one more. So just in terms of the agenda, we've done welcome and introductions. Jared has gone through the session process and etiquette. I'd like to just give a few slides about Synertech, and then I'm going to hand over to Frank, and Frank will talk a little bit about TTE, and then we're going to move directly into the subject matter of the webinar, which is the track and trace of explosives. And in that section, we're going to go through 3 parts, essentially regulations, then talk about security and compliance, and then Frank will give us a general overview of the solutions available for manufacturers and end users. After that, we'll move on to the questions and answers. Jared will take notes and record any actions, and then we'll do the conclusion. We are going to run through this as fast as practically possible. We do appreciate people have limited time available. If we do need to overrun for additional questions and answers, we will be available to do that. So those people we understand that need to leave on the dot after an hour, as Jared said, all the questions and answers will be made available at the end of the session. So just a brief overview quickly of Synertech. Essentially, we are an authorized TTE partner for South Africa for the entire SADC region. We are a South African-based company. We're digitization focused. We've been around for almost 20 years now. Our core focus is RFID systems, and on top of that, as well as process engineering of solutions. We do a lot of integration with OEM components, and we're working with Frank and TTE essentially to bring to the market a very well-qualified explosive management tool. TrackSense is our own IoT platform designed for multi-industry applications. I'll say a little bit more about that just now. In terms of Synertech and our organization, we have a very strong sales and marketing team, effectively working on pre-sales and after-sales and driving all of our marketing. We spend a lot of time in research and development. We have a fully fledged research lab at our offices in Lanseria. We believe this is our center of excellence, and it works very well to bring customers over, to show people what we do, get a hands-on feeling of technology before they actually invest in the technology. So again, this is an open invitation to anybody to come and visit our center of excellence. This is also where we do all of our solution testing and qualification. Then we have a fully fledged development capability where we do solution design, we do hardware development, spend a lot of time on software development as well as solutions qualification. Our last leg there is the 4th leg, which is service delivery. This is effectively where our business analysis, project management services fit into. We have a very strong manufacturing installation capability. And along with that comes the commissioning, training, support of solutions. Just in terms of some of our partners, so as I said, we've partnered with TTE because we view TTE to be the world leaders in terms of explosives management globally. And we do recommend their solution going forward. They do provide a very comprehensive solution. And what you'll see is when Frank goes through his presentation is the solution is aimed to show compliancy to legislation. And we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. Just in terms of the Synertech solutions, so a lot of what we do is all based around digitization. You'll see there's 6 segments around digitization on the slide. Starting off at the 11 o'clock position is automatic identification data capture. So our primary focus has always been RFID solutions, but that is not all that we do. We do a lot of other forms of automatic identification data capture. Moving across to clockwise, smart sensors. So a lot of sensors are available out in the market to help with digitization or automation of processes. Very importantly, moving along clockwise is connectivity. So we've partnered with the majority of the big role players in terms of connectivity and services. Moving further down, IoT. We view IoT, or the Internet of Things, as just another piece in the puzzle of digitization. So there we have solutions that fit into that market. But most importantly is the analysis and business intelligence realization. Without that capability and without you partnering with somebody in the market who can actually assist with that, all you're buying is a product and not a solution. So we pride ourselves in helping customers actually realize that business benefit. Then last but not least, actually our core engine in the company is our software development skill set. I've mentioned TrackSense as one of our tools. We've done a lot of different tool systems out, library management, track and trace solutions, general asset management, intelligent weighing systems, medical waste management. There's a large portfolio. And then we have partner software, and that's where we work with TTE, for example, specifically on explosives management. All right. So just in terms of our technology stack, if you look at the bottom there, there's all those data acquisition elements. And this is essentially our intelligent asset management platform called TrackSense, which is designed for the track and trace of objects and people. And we interface with all forms of automatic identification, data capture, RFID barcoding, biometrics, location, GPS, optical character recognition, telemetry systems. So we have a very comprehensive product, very strong rules engine, and easily integratable into different process models. What makes our system unique is it has a very intuitive task management solution. All right, so I think I've stolen enough time. If you could move down to the next slide, please, Jared. This is just a quick overview of some of our customers and users, widely spread from mining right across logistics, retail, fast-moving consumer goods. Any form of asset or track and trace of people and product is really where our focus lies. All right, if I'd like to now hand over to Frank. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's start with my part of the presentation. First,
Frank, just so you know, we have stopped sharing.
Frank, you can share.
What's the problem?
No, we're saying you can share from your side now, the presentation.
Okay. Yeah, of course. One moment, please. So, hopefully it's visible.
Yes, Frank.
Okay, great. So first, a very warm welcome also from my side and out of Germany. The good thing is it's the same time zone, so it is several thousands kilometers from you, but it's very easy to handle each other. And I'm very glad to have the possibility to speak here and to work together with Synertech within this area of explosives management. And yeah, let's start a little bit with some information about our company. Our company was founded in 1990 in Dresden, Germany, and we focused at the first time for warehouse management, logistics, everything around this, as well for RFID solutions. And so we are on the market since several years, and as I said, focused on the logistics software. In 2012, we founded the TTE-Europe GmbH out of this Dresden Informatik as a sister company, because we are in contact with the German Blasting Association, and we spoke about a new law which will come within the European Union regarding the track and trace of civil explosives. So we have seen how deep this could go into this special business, and to handle all things around, we founded this company. And now, yeah, I can say after 10 years, we are market leader here in this area, and most of our of the major companies worldwide and manufacturers are working with us. Some of the customers only out of the explosive sector you see here. You see Dyno Nobel, Orica, SSE, Maxim, Halliburton, Heidelberg Cement is a big end user, Lafarge, Bosch, Hansen, Ruag. These are companies who are using our solution from the manufacturing side as well as from the side of the end users. As you see here, we have not only mining companies or something like that, also Halliburton as a supplier for oil and gas equipment and methodologies and so on is working with us. We have special solutions for the oil and gas industry, as well as for all other parts within the explosives industry. It was in 2019, I was the last time in South Africa regarding some work we have to do there with an explosive manufacturer. And we were coming in contact with Colonel van Staden from the police department. And we spoke about the situation in South Africa. So that means we are started to discuss all the things around implementation of a track and trace system within the country, and what it means for all the business within the country. So as now there is a legal requirement in South Africa, but it's until now only available into a draft for the country since 2019, and it's waiting to come in place. But everything is prepared to go forward in this area, and it is based on the European regulation. Why this decision was made, as I heard from Colonel van Staden. Now in Europe, this system is working since several years, and yeah, we can say everything is working very well. We are hosting now all the explosive companies in Europe, and not only in Europe. And billions of data will be used and available, so that we are able now to fulfill this regulation. I will speak a little bit later about in the full dimension. So, and that's the reason. Yeah, it is an easy handling system, and it's a system works. This is the most important, and I think it is something which will be very helpful also for bringing into account in South Africa, because it is a use system, a system who has shown that it works. So therefore, I like to speak a little bit about this European regulation. And that means the regulation was the first discussions about that were in the beginning of the 2008, 2007, 2008, that a directive has to be come onto the market because reason behind it was the terror attacks in London and so on. So something has to be done to fulfill or to do something against the usage of explosives within the terrorism. So of course, it is only a part of all the things has to be done against terrorism, but it is something which started with a an idea behind. So, and therefore, the idea was we have to know what is done with explosives along the whole supply chain. That means from manufacturing explosives until using explosives, consumption of explosives, there has to be a clear picture what has been done with these explosives. So it should be a harmonized system within Europe. Yes, we started in Europe, and what we are seeing now, more and more countries worldwide taking over this regulation, as I said, because it is in use and it works. There's another country who has a similar system. It is Brazil. They started earlier in beginning of the 2000s. But it's mostly only used within the Latin American countries and special for Brazil. What is interesting for us? This directive is not used for ammunitions, for instance, also for explosives manufactured as a blasting sites, or in pump trucks, for instance, or explosives which are directly pumped into the blastor. To the other side, there are some needs out of this directive that say to us there should be something to identify explosives in that way that it is unique. Every single unique number on explosive has to be only given one time, so that it's possible to identify this explosive by using its number. So therefore, this is one of the needs coming out of the directive. Then the data out of the supply chain of every single explosives has to be saved for 10 years. And it must be possible to give at every time information to the authorities about every single explosive which was manufactured. That means there has to be a big database where all the data has to be stored. And for instance, we have a special identifying in Europe. What that means, we have a letter code which identifies the manufacturer, and we have this unique number for every single item. This marking must be possible to read by using a barcode as well as a human readable code. On such a label has to be the information about the manufacturer, about the type of explosive, netto explosive weight, and several additional information. Then it comes to a second point. Of course, it's very difficult to mark several different explosives. That means if you have, for instance, safety fuses, you are not able to mark it with a label or something like that. Or cap type primers as well, fuses, and so on. So that there's existing a special directive who says how to handle this special type of explosives, in which way it has to be used. It would be go too deep to tell all the regulations coming out of the EU directive, but to have an overview, I will show you a little bit later some documents who will help to find some ideas how such things has to be done. So we started in Europe in 2013 with the manufacturers to apply the labels on the explosives, and the end users has to start with such a system, with a track and trace system, in April 2015. Of course, it was a very interesting time, yes, let's say so, because we had to handle not only marked explosives, we also have on stock explosives out of the time before. This means unmarked explosives and marked explosives as well. It was necessary to handle new electronic devices. All the blasters has to work with special equipment to scan, for instance, the barcodes. They have to work in another way as they have done it before. So it was a challenging time, and it needs, let's say, about 1 year minimum to bring everything up and running. But after this time, it's a very interesting development on the market, because it goes away from the only need to use such a solution for track and trace because of a legislation or a directive. It is coming to handle such tracking systems also for internal use within the companies, because the overview about the whole supply chain, the exact knowledge about production and so on was very helpful for the companies, for the manufacturers, but end of the day as well for the end users, because a handwritten stock book is not longer needed. We are able in Europe to do everything electronical. So by using the scanner and integrating the data into the system, also the stock book is accepted by the authorities. So this long time for handwritten books are ended in Europe since this time in 2015. So, but how to handle it? Yes, we have, on the one side, we have a directive from the European Commission. This directive says, yes, you have to do something, and problem is they do not tell us how to do this. So therefore, the FEAM, the Federation of European Explosive Manufacturers, sitting together, also together with us, to find a way how to handle these directives, because there has to define a lot of things in the background. How should a code looks like? What information should be in a code? Yes, there has to be unique, but all the countries have to do the same, because there are will be a lot of software developers, a lot of manufacturers. All they maybe would have their own system, but it must be able to understand each other. That means if a manufacturer in Spain sells explosives to end users in Germany, this end user must be able to understand the codes marked on the explosives and to use it with a track and trace system. That means there has to be a harmonized system all over Europe. And out of this, the theme, with our help, developed this guidance node. And this defines the European explosive code structure. And based on this, all the companies, software companies, European-wide and later worldwide, are able to develop solutions who understand each other in all the countries. And this was one of the very, very interesting things, and the first time that was in this specific industry that such a document was developed with all the main players on the European market. So this guide helps to develop solutions, but of course it is a lot of work end of the day, because it is a special business area, the explosives industry. You have to have special knowledge to define a lot of processes within your solution. You have to define, or you have to know what you are doing with explosives, what types of explosives are existing, what are the differences between the explosives, how we are able to handle it, and all the things has to be things that have to be in the brain of the attendees of this commission who have developed this system, this guidance node, to find a way to handle everything. So, but you see, it worked. So that means also these guys have done a fantastic job to standardize all the needed information and to handle it, to bring it to the customers end of the day. But of course, this is something which has to be, you have to have a look deeper inside to understand what the specific rules are there. But as an overview, I think it's very interesting to know that this cooperation helped to bring something on the market which works now since 7 years without any problems. Now it's possible to have the first time to see what's happened with explosives from manufacturing until the consumption. And to do this, a lot of information has to be given from the manufacturer to the wholesaler, for instance, from them to the end user. If the end user gives some information or explosives back to the wholesaler or to the manufacturer, all the additional information has to be given over. That means, because I have, for instance, in a delivery, in a shipping from a manufacturer, more than 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 items of explosives, for instance, detonators, cartridges, and so on, I have to give all the information about the unique numbers and several additional information which are available to the next part within the supply chain. If I send it to a wholesaler, then he has to know what he has got from the manufacturer. And not only that, I have now 20,000 different detonators in my stock. he has to know every single number from every detonator and every piece of explosives. So this is not easy to handle. It's not able to handle by a written book or something like that. It has to be within a IT system, which helps you to store all this information and to understand this information. That means within this theme ideas has to be found a possibility to give this information from the manufacturer to the next step within the supply chain and to the end user and back as well. So, and therefore a special data type is used. It is a so-called XML file. This XML file contains all the information about the delivered explosives and can be transferred to the track and trace software system of the next step within the next user within the supply chain. So that means the manufacturer send it, for instance, directly to the end users. And if he loads this file within his own system, he is able to see what the shipping will contain, which items of explosives will be there, all the numbers, unique numbers, he is able to handle and to give the information about that, if necessary, as well to the authorities, because this is one of the things in the background. And this has to be fulfilled for every single explosive and for all users within the supply chain. They must be able to all the time, 24 hours, 7 days a week, to give explosives, if needed, to the authorities. This XML file, of course, will be created for each shipping operation. That means also if you as an end user has gotten a shipping, you used a part of the explosives, and for any reason you need to send something back to the manufacturer or to the wholesaler, then it is you have to send such an XML file, to create such an XML file and to send it back to the next step in the supply chain, for instance, the manufacturer. So to do this, you have to have a system in place who is able to create this specific file for you. So how the handling of such things is. For instance, there's an incoming order on a manufacturer or wholesaler. He is generating an order, and out of this order, an XML file will be generated if the explosives leaving the manufactory, and in between there could be a picking process if different types of explosives are ordered, for instance, and it will be transported to the end user. This end user gets this XML file. He is able to scan what arrived on his place in his mine or wherever he is using or storing the explosives, and the system get all the information about the delivery directly in his IT system, and he knows exactly what's coming in his warehouses or to use on a site. So if you have a look to this needed processes and information for manufacturers, it is, it's clear. It is the first step within the supply chain. The explosives have to be manufactured. They have to be marked, and they have to be scanned. The data or the information have to be captured to bring it within the system. How it looks like. At first, the manufacturer has to know or a manufacturer who has to implement such a track and trace system has to know that he has to adapt his processes, his production processes, to be able to integrate a track and trace system. Because it's not only some information like before you have on your explosives, for instance, manufacturing date and so on. You have to have this unique number in electronic or in electronic readable form, as well as in a human readable form, directly on your explosives. So that means you have to mark it. And this can be done in different ways. Depends, of course, of the explosives you are producing or type of explosives you're producing. For instance, it's possible to label it with special labels who are very strong and will be applied to the explosives with all the information how such a label has to look like. Also is the rules are within the theme guidance note as well as within the local regulations. Every country maybe has different regulations how such a label has to look like. It can be used or it can be marked by inkjet printing or the laser marking, depends on the type of explosives. Some words to the inkjet printing. It was something the European companies also tried to use in the first days of the track and trace of explosives. But of course, it's a very difficult process because it may be not good readable because of the diameter of the explosives, for instance, or the technology behind the inkjet printing. But it was in the first times. Now new processes and technologies are existing, which it makes possible to use inkjet printing as well. The next big problem or challenge, not problem, a challenge for the company is to capture the data on the explosives. That means to have an overview about every single produced explosives, you have to capture the data out of the barcode and to store it in a database. So that means there has to be somewhere scanners and other types of capturing possibilities to bring this data into your database or the database of the manufacturer. Then next, but not but also very important, is the creating of packaging hierarchies. So that means, of course, you are producing a single item. This single item will be packed into inner packaging. This inner packaging into a box and a number of boxes onto a pallet. That means you have to do or you have to find a way to give all the information about the items within the inner package to a barcode on an inner package, and this to a barcode on a box, and all the barcodes or box of the boxes on a pallet to a barcode on a pallet. And if you have done this, you are able to scan, for instance, only the barcode of a pallet, and you know all single items which are stored on this pallet, and you have this data available. This is our also procedures are developed to work with such a solution for track and trace. Storage and shipment of goods. So it is the next step within this special idea of the track and trace of explosives. Not only the manufacturing or the shipping direct from manufacturing has to be handled, also the storage within the warehouses. So that means now with a solution, with a track and trace solution, you are able to have a total control about all the goods stored in your warehouses. You are able to identify where they are placed. You know exactly the netto explosive weight of all your explosives in the different warehouses. You know the date of usage or until they have to be used. You are able to handle a first in, first out methodology, and everything what's needed in a warehouse management. You have now the data available to handle it electronically. What's you have to have in your mind? It's interesting. It's only a marginally increasing of cost per item if you have to integrate such a system. There is or should not be a reduction in productivity and no increase of personal cost. Because it is something has to be in mind if you are planning such a system to integrate in your manufacturing process. It has to be done, or it has to be usable for all types of explosives, not only for info production, cartridge production. For every single explosive has to be, the system must be able to be used. As I said, productivity has to be on the same level as before. Personal cost, I spoke about it. There must be possibilities to use a system within the production for manual production, for partially automated production, but as well for full automated production processes. That means if a manufacturer is producing cartridges, small cartridges, for instance, 120 pieces per minute. So then you have to mark 120 single items per minute within your production process. And you have to scan these items as well. And this process is behind to make this work available is not easy. It is there has to be a good understanding of all the processes in a front of introducing such a system there, and there's a lot of work to define these steps. What is the reason to do that? Of course, there are legal requirements, or there can be legal requirements, but we now start as well to integrate such solutions also in countries which are not using or not having such legal needs. For instance, United States. A lot of companies and manufacturers using track and trace now as well, because to one point they have to use it if they like to export to countries which are using such systems and have such legal requirements. But as well, they have now a plus within their own production understanding. That means they are now able to record the production performance exactly based until or up to the single item which is produced within their manufacturers and facilities. They are able now to detect bottlenecks very early, because you have in-time information about your production. You have the possibility to evaluate the work performance, of course, only if the national laws allow it. You have a control about waste and over the scrap products, and you are able to transfer data between your ERP system and the price resource planning systems and other third-party systems out of the track and trace system to the ERP system and back as well. So that means if you have an order coming normally into your ERP system, it is possible to deliver this order directly into a track and trace system, and from there directly to the production lines, to the end user or to the user of the shipping process, so that he is able to build up shipping for a customer. And to the other side as well, if I'm sending it out to the customer, the system knows exactly what really was sent. Not only was planned, it is now known what really was sent to the customer, and the bookkeeping can be done on exact data. So in the warehouse management, of course, you have a precise control now about incoming and outgoing explosives. You have a logging of all activities. In some reasons, for some reasons, it's necessary to have an exact overview. Everyone knows sometimes explosives are stolen, explosives are misused, or not used as they should to use. So, and out of this, now you have an overview what you have exactly within your warehouses. Of course, it's also now possible to, if you have enough criminal energy to take something away, but it's more difficult than before. You have an overview about all the executed processes, receipt, the relocation, destruction, shipment, so that you are able to know exactly who was a guy who has done which process, who has done the shipping, who has done the destruction, relocation, shipment, so that you are able to go directly to the right person to get more information if needed. And you are able to print out documentation about all these single steps. So you could have it also for your paper documentation or for sending to the authorities if needed. End users. What's possible with such a solution as well? The transfer of data from simulation software or planning software into a track and trace system and back is possible. So that you know exactly what's coming out of your warehouses into the boreholes, and the other way, you know exactly what was used for this consumption and what was not used, and can be bring back into your warehouse, and you have the overview about that. For the consumption, of course, you are able to prove the performance of the blasting. It's also a security point to know what was done and who has done which step within the consumption. You are able with additional modules to do an exact positioning of the user on the surface, as well within underground mines with additional modules, of course. You are able to prove the unused explosives if they are returned to the warehouse. And if needed, and sometimes it is very helpful, you are able to have a photo documentation together with all the data about the single explosives. So then you have the possibility to see exactly what was in the borehole, what was filled into the borehole. But of course, limits are in such a system as well. There is a problem. Mostly this problem or this risk are not on side of the electronical systems. It is the human problem. Of course, there can be a reduction, especially in the first time, in the productivity, because the human has to know and learn the new processes by handling the explosives together with a scanner and mobile devices. There has to be an adaptation of work processes because you have to scan on several parts of your process for consumption, for warehousing, and for shipping and so on. There has to be explosive has to be scanned, so it's different to the time before. Of course, you have invest into consulting, hardware and software if you have to implement such a solution, and you have to train your employees. And last but not least, there may be a dispute with the unions because, yes, you are able to have a better overview about the single work steps the users are doing. So, but it's this is to the one side. To the other side, you have a very good, it's a building block in the system of control of the dangerous goods. So it is in the interest of the companies and governments to know everything about the supply chain of explosives. And this is a big step to increase the security. As I said, there's a point can be or has to be handled. These are the human resources you have. If there's sufficient criminal energy and understanding of the processes, you can remove this explosives from the system as well. But it is like with every system, it can't be done for 100% if in effectiveness. So let's come now to a short look to our system, what we are providing to our customers. This is a short overview. We have a system for end users and a system for manufacturers with the main parts within the system. You can have a deeper look, I think, later on, because the information will be provided by Synertech to every one of us, of you, so that you can go deeper in the similar parts of the solution. Some information, basic information about the solution. The solution can be hosted as a cloud solution. That means it's very easy to implement. You only have to have a computer with a browser, which is connected to the internet, and you are able to use such a solution. Or like most of the big companies are doing it, they implement the solution in their own IT environment. So both is possible, and it depends on the customer needs. You see here a short look into a production of cord. You see here such a scanner to scan the marked explosives, and you see a solution how it be handled within a manual or minimal automated process within the cord production. As a summary, it is a part, implementing track and trace is a part of a safety concept of countries. But it can be as well a part of safety concepts of each and every company. We will have the total transparency of the supply chain if you have implemented such a system. You know at every time where such an item is located. Your warehouse management can be taken to a new level. You are able to exchange data within to third-party systems like ERP systems. Invoicing can be created based on the real delivery values, and a lot of more information like filling of warehouses. Everything can be given back into your main ERP system. And yes, last but not least, it is now used by 9 or respectively 7 years in Europe, and it is something which works without any bigger problems. And now it's a normal daily process within our explosives industry. And we've seen these things as well in other countries. We implement now for Dyno Nobel worldwide this track and trace system on all manufacturing sites and warehouse or supplying sites, so that the companies are going forward in this process. And I'm sure in the next years this will be a system who will be used worldwide in the most of the countries. A little bit about support. Of course, we are able to guarantee support on all continents. If you like to work together, we will able to support you in your language and to do it in a minimum of time everywhere worldwide. So thank you for your attention. And now, yeah, if you have questions, we are ready to answer your questions or come back to you later on. Thank you.